triple bag alert, triple bag alert, folks. That is right. We got a triple bag alert. This is the third day in a row that we've had bag alerts. All right. We're going to talk about all of the bag alerts that have happened recently. We're also going to talk about this Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel trade talk. I know you guys probably don't want to hear it, but we have to discuss it. Also, the draft is over. We got to talk about the draft. We also have to talk about the winners and losers of the draft on the sixth episode of the Football Junkies podcast. I am your host, your GM that's not on the team right now, that has produced 6 Hall of Famers, 5 All Pros, and 3 Pro Bowlers. Kale, let's get it. All right, folks. So let's get into these bag alerts. Okay. First bag alert. AJ Brown. Once again, I don't know why this happens, but every time the draft comes around, money is always coming his way. But AJ Brown has inked a 3-year, $96 million extension to stay with the Eagles. He will be receiving a $19.8 million signing bonus, $84 million in total guarantees, which averages around $32 million a year. When we look at AJ Brown, since being traded from the Titans to the Eagles, his career has just skyrocketed. Okay, AJ Brown has continued to show why he is still one of the best receivers, not only in just the NFC, but in the league as a whole. He is one of those receivers where if you don't have a physical corner that can really, go stride for stride with him and contest those 50-50 balls, he's going to get it. He's going to get it. He is going to get it. Honestly speaking here, the Eagles have won this trade. What they gave up to get AJ Brown definitely was justified. And congrats to him. Now, to the second bag alert, we have a defensive tackle for the Patriots, Christian Barmore. He has inked a 4-year, $92 million extension. 41.8 of that is guaranteed, which averages around $23 million a year. Now, Christian Barmore is coming off of a 8.5 sack season, 39 solo tackles, and 64 total tackles, and 1 forced fumble, according to ESPN. Now, Christian Barmore, by all accounts, has shown that he is a productive defensive tackle, especially for the Patriots. Since getting drafted, his name has been under the radar, but he is a very, very, very productive player. He's not a type of player where he's gonna create these crazy numbers. But when you need somebody to get the job done, Christian Barmore is that person. Okay. I remember leading up to the draft, in his draft class specifically, Christian Barmore was considered a first round pick. But the only reason why he fell out of the first round was allegedly he had attitude problems and he couldn't take corrective criticism correctly. Something crazy. But congrats to him. And now for the third, that's right, third bag alert, right? Third bag alert. All Pro, future Hall of Fame, one of the greatest tight ends in NFL history, Travis Kelce. Yes. Travis Kelce inked a 2-year, $34.25 million deal to stay with the Chiefs. 17 of that is guaranteed at signing, which averages around $17.12 million. Let's just be real here, folks. Travis Kelce continues to be one of the most dominant and one of the most consistent tight ends in the NFL right now. Game in and game out, he continues to show up. When the receivers are getting locked up left and right, Mahomes can always trust Travis Kelce. He's always going to get open. He's always going to make the big play, the big block, whatever he needs to do to motivate that offense to score and to win. All right. Now that we've gotten over all of the bag alerts, and congratulations to those 3 players for their bag alerts, let's talk about this Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel trade talk. Yes, those 2 players. Now, during the draft, there were reports starting to circulate that the 49ers were also receiving calls for both Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel. Originally, it was just calls for Brandon Aiyuk, but I guess they wanted to see what would be the market like if they were to include Deebo Samuel as well. Ultimately, neither one of them got traded. However, at this point, I would not be surprised if one of the other does get traded. Let's be real here, folks. The 49ers are in a position where one or two things can happen. Either they can trade away Deebo Samuel and then, be able to pay Brandon Aiyuk, or vice versa. One of those two. But we cannot say right now that both of those players are still going to be on the 49ers, especially with what the 49ers drafted in the first round. They drafted Ricky Pearsall. So you now have Ricky Pearsall, you have Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, and Juan Jennings. That's a lot. That's a lot of receivers, and it's only one ball. So someone is going to have to get the axe. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's Deebo Samuel, only because now that the reports have come out that, the 49ers were receiving, calls for Deebo Samuel, that muddies things up. They just paid him, and now essentially, they're just going to move off of him. So he's, in his mind, he's probably like, you know what, forget about it. I just want out at this point. Not to mention, I think teams will be more open to trading for him simply because his contract is a little bit more, it's more easy to digest compared to, giving up high draft picks for Brandon Aiyuk and then paying him top dollar, especially with how the receiver market has basically blossomed within the last few days, with both AJ Brown getting his deal and Amon-Ra St. Brown getting his deal, and as well as Rashad Bateman getting his deal as well. So that the number is going to continue to rise. So at some point they're going to have to make a decision on if they're going to have to pay him now or just get rid of him altogether. When you take a look at Deebo Samuel's contract, he signed a 3-year, $71.5 million deal with a $24 million signing bonus. $41 million of that was guaranteed at signing. 58.1 of that money is in total guarantees. Now, here is the part where teams might be a little bit more interested. If he was traded before May 1st, which I think is tomorrow, the new team would carry on 2 years, $39.4 million. 21.9 million of that will be guaranteed in 2024, and 17.5 million guaranteed for his average salary for 2025. And the 49ers will only take a $21.7 million dead cap hit, but would save $6.8 million. So honestly speaking here, if a team gave up enough draft compensation, I think the 49ers would be more willing to absorb some of that money, while the team that does get Deebo Samuel, they would just have to take the rest, which is a little bit more easier compared to creating a whole new contract for a player like Brandon Aiyuk, because according to Spotrac, this was before Amon-Ra St. Brown got his deal and AJ Brown got his deal. Brandon Aiyuk's market at that time was a 4-year, $99.8 million deal, which would average around $24.9 million a year. That was before Amon-Ra St. Brown got his deal and AJ Brown getting his deal. That number has changed dramatically now. And so, some teams might not be willing to shell out a whole lot of money to Brandon Aiyuk, because whether we want to admit it or not, before that trade is officially processed, Brandon Aiyuk is going to want to talk about money. There is going to have to be a deal in place that both Brandon Aiyuk and the team can agree upon before that trade is official. Otherwise, there will not be any movement at all. Now, is it wise for the 49ers to probably move one of these players? Yes and no at the same time. And the only reason why I say that is because yes, at the same time, it's good to move off of, disgruntled players, but at the same time, um, who is to say that you would get the draft compensation that you want, right? Because at this point, the trade market is it's crazy. It's a little bit crooked at this point. You're seeing, all Pro Bowl players who are getting traded for basically pennies on the dollar. Okay, perfect example, right? When Jalen Ramsey was traded from the Rams to the Dolphins, everyone was thinking, oh, the Dolphins are going to have to give up a whole lot just to get Jalen Ramsey. No, they didn't. When the Texans traded for Stephon Diggs, they didn't even have to give up a whole lot. And even then, they voided the remaining years of Stephon Diggs' contract and basically pushed the money that he would have made next year to this year, basically making him a free agent once this upcoming season is over with. So when you have those type of things in place, it can mess up the trade market. And right now, what players that were at one time, worth maybe multiple first round picks or, multiple picks are now being, just shipped around for maybe a third, a fourth, or a fifth, a sixth, maybe a conditional second, any of those things at this point. So we all have to factor in those type of things before a deal of this magnitude could probably occur. Now that we're done talking about that, let's talk about this draft. Yes, the draft. The draft. Oh man, the draft definitely had, well, it was like a roller coaster. Okay, it started off really slow, up. And then once it got to the point, it just went down. Okay, as fast as you could possibly think, it just went down. From the Chargers drafting Joe Alt to the Falcons drafting Michael Penix to the Chiefs being able to get Xavier Worthy to the Steelers getting Troy Fatanu, it was a good draft for a lot of teams. Now, we have to really analyze certain teams that won a little bit more than what other teams did. For instance, me personally, I feel like the Eagles definitely won. They got two players who, leading up to the draft, were mocked to be, in the top 10, top 15 range, right? And they dropped. Cooper DeJean was drafted in the second round. Quinyon Mitchell dropped all the way down. But a lot of that was because there were so many teams that wanted to get all of those quarterbacks, right? Not to mention, you had a lot of teams that were also trying to get those offensive linemen, specifically the tackles as well. So when you have a mixture of those two elements in place, a lot of players are going to fall. The first defensive player that was drafted was Latu Latu, and he went to the Colts. So I say all that to say this. Yes, mock drafts are good to look at. They are. They create a lot of conversation, create a lot of debates, all that different type of stuff. But just because there is a mock draft and there's a specific player that you may like and it keeps on showing that your team is probably going to get them, don't believe it. Don't believe it. If you would have told me that Brock Bowers would have went to the Raiders, Michael Penix going to the Falcons, Cooper DeJean falling out of the first round, Quinyon Mitchell dropping as low as he did, and Nate Wiggins dropping as low as he did, and Troy Fatanu, I would have called you a liar. I really would have. You are talking about those four players alone, who by all means were probably high on a lot of teams' boards. Okay, but the only knock to one of those players, Cooper DeJean, for example, was Cooper didn't get cleared for a long time. And by the time he was getting cleared, a lot of teams and GMs, they have already did their rounds and went to, pro days and private workouts and did whatever homework that they needed to do on whatever player that they really wanted to draft. So when you have that mixed with, his private workouts being as late as they were in the season, in the off season, it probably made a lot of teams not really interested in him beforehand. Okay. But when you have teams like the Eagles who recognize that they do need to get their secondary to be a little bit younger, of course they're going to double dip. And it worked. It worked. They were able to get Quinyon Mitchell, who is, by all regards, probably the most balanced corner out of this cornerback draft class. You're talking about someone that can play both man and zone coverage and does it very well, not very handsy. His technique is phenomenal. Great coverage, just all around great player. And then you have Cooper DeJean, who can play both corner and safety, but I think the Eagles will probably use him more in the safety position compared to corner position, right? And when you look at teams, for instance, like the Falcons, because we are going to talk about it. We about this for a while. I really did. I had to sleep on this, and I had to talk to my friends about this. Shout out to Mook. Shout out to Shane. On one hand, it was a bad move. It really was. Simply because you have all these other pressing needs on the team. And that could have waited, honestly speaking here. Because now what you see is unnecessary drama that is going to linger into the off season, into the summer, into OTAs, into training camp, into the preseason, and eventually into the regular season. Okay. Not to mention the Falcons just signed Kirk Cousins to a long-term deal. Now, I understand there are people that are going to say, well, Kirk Cousins is coming off of a major injury and he's up in age. Yes, that is true. That is very true. However, that doesn't mean that you use your first round pick to address that problem. You could have waited into the second, third, or fourth round to address that position. You could have. You still had Michael Pratt. You still had Jordan Travis. You still had Spencer Rattler. You had Joe Milton. You had a plethora of different quarterbacks that still would have been available in the later parts of the draft. So for you to draft Michael Penix that high was unnecessary. Not to mention, he is an older prospect. He is a player right now that is ready to start day one. He doesn't have time to be waiting 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 years. He doesn't. He's already an older player anyway. So you're already creating drama because now anytime Kirk Cousins doesn't make the right play, doesn't throw the right pass, doesn't execute the right play, whatever the case may be, they're all going to say, oh, get in Michael Penix, get in Michael Penix, get him in, bring him in, bring him in, bring him in. They're all going to do that. And so now Kirk Cousins is basically, looking over his shoulder because he realizes at some point, if I go through a stretch where I'm not being, the Kirk Cousins that I was with the Vikings, where I'm not being as productive, where I'm not putting up, touchdowns and making big plays and whatnot, oh, they're going to bench me. They're going to bench me. Not only are they going to bench me, they're probably going to find a way to get off of my contract. And so you just don't make that type of move. You just don't. You don't. I don't care who you are. I as a GM who is not on the team right now, who has, gone through this situation himself, you just don't make that type of move. You don't. You just do not make that type of move. There were so many other holes on the Falcons roster that needed to be addressed, and quarterback wasn't. Okay, you could have instantly boosted up that defense by getting one of those corners, by getting a Terrion Arnold or Kool-Aid McKinstry or Cooper DeJean or a Johnny Newton or a Tavondre Sweat. Whoever, you could have addressed that position. You could have. But instead, you wanted to say, oh, we're going to get Michael Penix. There's nothing that you can say as a GM, as an owner, whoever. There's nothing that you can say that can justify that pick. Nothing. And if I'm the GM on the Falcons, I have to pray and hope that this goes in my direction. Because if it doesn't, I'm basically going to get fired. His job is on the line at this point. It is. Because you don't make that type of move when you just signed a veteran quarterback to the type of money that they just signed Kirk Cousins. You only make that type of move when you have already had a veteran quarterback in place and now they're at the tail end of their career and they're, it's just time for a fresh start. Other than that, you don't make that type of move. You steadfast, you figure out what you need to do, you address certain holes, and you just move forward, honestly. Um, but enough about the Falcons because just thinking about it just irritates my soul. Let's talk about some of the winners and losers of the draft. Honestly speaking, here. So for me personally, and this is just me, this is just my analysis. I could be wrong. Um, we can talk about we can talk about this for the next 2 or 3, 4 weeks. Doesn't matter to me. Me personally, I feel like the Bears won, of course, simply because they drafted their quarterback because we all knew they were going to get Caleb Williams, and they added another receiver to that stacked offense. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think people realize how stacked that offense is. They now have Caleb Williams, they have Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, now Roma Dunze. They still have Equinarius St. Brown. Excuse me if I am pronouncing your name wrong. I am so sorry. They still have Cole Kmet, and they got DeAndre Swift. That's a good offense right there. That is an offense that can, win some games with the Lions, with the Packers, with the Vikings, honestly speaking here. You have the Commanders who they did get one of the best quarterbacks, and especially within their division. Now they're in a place where if they maybe make a few more trades and whatnot, and if they continue to stay on this path, they could definitely be in a place where they could compete against the Eagles. They really can. Up next is the Steelers. Yes, the Steelers did draft very well. Okay, their first two picks definitely address pressing needs on the offense, and they got the players that they have really been eyeing for since the off season. Okay, if you would have told me that Troy Fatanu would have dropped to 20, I would have called you a liar. But it happened. Okay. And, that was a great pickup. He's probably going to be moved over to right tackle, which is perfectly fine. I'm all here for it. And then with them getting Zach Frazier as well, that was an amazing pickup. This guy can do it all, okay? Great player, great mindset, great leadership. Um, you know, basically walked off the field after basically breaking his leg just so the team doesn't avoid getting a penalty. All right. That is a different type of mindset, especially for a center. And not to mention, he has said that he models his game after Creed Humphrey. So let's see what this happens, Steelers fans. Let's see what happens. Now, I did it. I did it. Wasn't biased. Wasn't biased. Nope, I lied. We are going to be amazing this year, folks, okay? We are going. Listen, any Ravens fan, any Bengals fan, any Browns fan that says, oh, the Steelers aren't going to do anything, guess what? You're lying. You're lying. You are lying. Let us not get one of these receivers, okay? Let us not be the powerhouse that we used to be. Oh my God, we are going to create some noise. You got Broderick Jones at left tackle. You got Isaac Seumalo at left guard. You got Zach Frazier in the middle. You got James Daniels on the right side. And then you got Troy Fatanu at right tackle. What are you going to do with that? Nothing. There's nothing that you can do about it. Not to mention, you got the two-headed monster and Jalen Warren and in Najee Harris. And you got Moof. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Now, moving forward. Um, moving forward. Now, going on to the Saints. The Saints definitely won. They definitely addressed a very pressing need that has suddenly emerged with Ryan Ramczyk basically on the verge of medically retiring. They drafted Talois Fuaga, which he was regarded as one of the best right tackles in this draft class. So, all in all, a very great pickup. Cowboys. Yes, Cowboys fans, I'm talking about you guys in a positive way. You can start clapping now. Um, the Cowboys decided to draft Tyler Guyton, which, I mean, when you look at the Cowboys' history, they have always produced good, great, and elite offensive linemen. If you don't believe me, look at their history books. They have produced offensive linemen very, very, very well within the last 15 to 20 years. However, they have not gone to the Super Bowl since 1995. Just have to put that in there. Sorry, Cowboys fans. Moving forward. um, when you look at the Eagles, as I said before earlier on, the Eagles are one of the few teams that definitely have a plus grade in my book simply because you drafted Cooper DeJean and you got Quinyon Mitchell. Not to mention, they got Jeremiah Trotter Jr., which is great story. That defense right now is looking really scary, really, really, really scary. Okay, you got Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, James Bradbury, C.J. Gardner Johnson, Cooper DeJean, Jeremiah Trotter, Devin White, N'Kobe Dean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Travis, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, and Bryce Huff. Listen, the Eagles are going to make some noise this year, folks. They're going to make some noise. Noise. I tell you, noise. Moving on to the Chiefs. Chiefs are the Chiefs. Basically, they got Xavier Worthy. Wouldn't be surprised if they tried to utilize him sort of like in a Tyreek Hill-esque type of way, simply because Andy Reid, is the mastermind that he is. So, only time will tell with that. Jets, I would say so. With them drafting Alo Fashanu, that was definitely a great pickup. It allows him to learn from Tyron Smith as well. It's just a matter of will he go and play right tackle or will he sit under Tyron Smith for 1 year and learn. The next team, the Ravens. Yes, the Ravens. The Ravens stood still. They stayed patient, and in doing so, they got Nate Wiggins. Okay, one of the fastest corners in this draft class. Let's face it here, folks. With the history that the Ravens have shown when it comes to their secondary, this was a good pickup. This was a really good pickup. Now they have a corner who can go stride for stride with the likes of Tyreek Hill, who can go stride for stride with the likes of Jalen Waddle and other faster receivers. Not to mention, he also has the length to go one-on-one with a lot of these taller receivers as well. So all in all, great job for the Ravens. Moving on, the Vikings. The Vikings definitely won because they were one of the teams that were very aggressive. They wanted J.J. McCarthy. They got J.J. McCarthy. And on top of that, they got Dallas Turner as well. So all in all, great job for them. Buccaneers, they got Graham Barton. Since Ryan Jensen has retired, they definitely have been trying to find, that next great center. And so now they have Graham Barton. I definitely wanted the Steelers to get Graham Barton, but I think him going to the Buccaneers might be a better choice for him. Now, moving on to the Lions. Lions did a really good job as well. They did. They definitely did a great job. With them drafting Terrion Arnold in replacement for Cameron Sutton with the whole, ongoing investigation with him and his allegations, Terrion Arnold, definitely will play a very big role in that secondary. You're talking about somebody whose technique is very refined, very just all around really good corner. Can play man, can play zone. Just Alabama corners, just doing their thing all around. This guy is someone that's just going to be all over the field. Okay, he is going to go mano a mano with the best receiver on the opposing team, and most likely he is going to get the job done. Okay, now the next team is the Jaguars. Yes, they drafted Brian Thomas Jr. If you would have told me that Brian Thomas would have fallen the way that he did to the Jaguars, I would have called you a liar. All in all, great receiver, great physical receiver. can definitely go up there and get those 50-50 balls. Just all around a great weapon to add to the Jaguars offense. Now, on to the losers of the draft. Here we go. Of course, the Falcons have to be first. If you want a team to mess up a draft, here is the team, the Falcons. Of course, they had one job. All you had to do was just draft somebody that was going to help out with the defense since the offense was in a good spot. But no, what did they decide to do? We're going to draft Michael Penix. Case point, not going to say anything else about it. When you look at the Raiders definitely needed a quarterback. Aiden O'Connell is not going to get the job done, folks, especially in a division that has Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. Them getting Brock Bowers, I mean, that is another weapon, but unless they're going to go after another quarterback, with a trade or anything like that, I don't know about this personally. The Broncos. Yes, the Broncos. Bo Nix is sort of in the same situation as Michael Penix, an older prospect. Many people did not view him as a first round pick. A lot of people viewed him as a second round pick. He is entering into a situation where he doesn't have a whole lot around him, especially with the trade rumors going around that Cortland Sutton might be getting traded soon. He's in a situation where his only receiver is going to be Tim Patrick and Troy Franklin. That's it. But only time will tell with that situation. The Panthers, yes, the Panthers. On one hand, I understand the move of getting Xavier Legette. Yes, great move. They definitely have surrounded Bryce Young with a lot of weapons. However, I do feel like, and I'm not saying this because I'm a big person that's for the offensive line, but I do feel like they should have possibly tried to get a offensive lineman. It's okay to have all the weapons in the world, but if you don't have any protection, you can't throw it to anybody, right? Especially with him being a smaller stature quarterback, he needs to be protected. That's the only way he's going to be able to feed it to Xavier Legette, Deontay Johnson, and company. That's the only way that this experiment works, okay? And finally, the main loser of the 2024 NFL Draft is Malik Neighbors. Yes, Malik Neighbors. Oh man, if you guys have not seen the video that I'm getting ready to talk about, go on YouTube and you will find it. So when he came to the Giants, to visit the facility, meet the coaches and whatnot, he gave sort of that face where it's like, okay, you know what? Why am I here? Why am I? Why did this team drafted me? I should have dropped down to the other teams. I want to be on a playoff team. I don't want to be on this crappy team. Those were the vibes that Malik Neighbors was giving off. Now, unfortunately, you are stuck with the Giants for the next 5 years, and unless they go and make a swing on the quarterback or whatever the case may be, you're stuck with them, my boy. I'm sorry, but you are. But before I end this podcast, I have to give recognition as well as their flowers. Former Broncos, Chargers, and Saints cornerback Chris Harris has announced his retirement from the NFL. If you guys don't know who Chris Harris was, Chris Harris played a very pivotal role in the no-fly zone defense for the Broncos that ultimately won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning in Super Bowl 50. He has decided to walk away from the NFL altogether, so congratulations to him. But I'm going to end this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the Football's Junkies podcast. I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need for this week. If anything crazy happens, I'll just probably put out a little mini episode, just detailing the the move as well as compensation. If there is compensation, if someone got paid, a bag alert, a trade, whatever the case may be, we'll probably talk about it briefly. If you guys like what you guys are listening to, please leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform that you guys use. Shout out to Spotify, shout out to Apple Podcasts, and all the podcasts that have allowed me to give the fix that my fellow junkies need. Shout out to all the people that are listening, worldwide. If you guys want, you guys can follow us on Instagram at football_junkies pod. Again, that is football_junkies pod. And until then, I will see you guys around. I'll keep you guys posted on anything crazy happens. Peace and love. I'm out.